My fiancée let her best friend disrespect me in my own house while living off my money. Then she gave me an ultimatum: apologize or leave. So I said, "You have it coming," and ended everything. I, 32 male forensic accountant in Austin. Think financial detective meets courtroom assassin. When companies cook their books or spouses hide assets, I'm the guy who finds every dirty secret and presents it so clearly that even the biggest scumbags can't weasel out. My specialty is asset tracing and financial reconstruction. I've exposed everything from Ponzi schemes to divorce fraud, helping clients recover millions in stolen wealth. The work requires patience, analysis, and absolute attention to detail. You document everything, assume nothing, and let evidence tell the story. 4 years ago, I bought a 1960s ranch in East Austin for $180,000. Classic fixer-upper that most people would run from, but I saw dollar signs. East Austin was blowing up, property values climbing fast, and this house had killer bones under decades of neglect. I dumped $47,000 and 3 years of sweat equity into that place. Rewired everything, modernized plumbing, gutted the kitchen, restored original hardwood, upgraded HVAC, rebuilt the master bath, spent countless weekends learning to tile, countless evenings after 12-hour workdays sanding trim by hand. The garage became my workshop. Table saw, compound miter, complete electrical setup for serious renovation work. By the time I was done, I had a $300,000 house that felt like a fortress I'd built with my own hands. That's when Valerie walked into my life. Met her at a UT Business School networking event about a year after finishing the house renovations. 28, first-year MBA, sharp as hell and hungry for success. She'd done 3 years in marketing after undergrad, realized she needed more firepower for the career she wanted, and was betting on herself with grad school. I respected that hustle. The chemistry was instant. She got my analytical mind. I was drawn to her ambition. Our conversations had substance, goals, values, the kind of real talk that separates grown-ups from college kids still figuring things out. She was studying finance concentration and claimed she wanted to understand how wealth really worked. When she mentioned that student loans were stressing her out and she was considering part-time work that would tank her grades, I made what seemed like an obvious call. Focus on school. I told her, I've got this. So I started cutting checks to UT's Bursar office. $52,000 per year in tuition and fees, not pocket change. But I was pulling serious money and believed we were building something together. Investment in her future meant investment in our future, right? Famous final words. Anyways, 8 months in, her 2003 Camry started dying. Burning oil, transmission slipping, $2,800 repair estimate on a car worth maybe $3,500. Instead of throwing good money after bad, I took her to Honda's certified pre-owned lot. Picked out a reliable 2019 Accord with 28,000 miles, leather interior, advanced safety package, $16,200 out the door. Title in my name, insurance through my policy for efficiency. I'll pay you back once I graduate and land a good job, she promised. I believed her. More than that, I didn't care. Partners handled business together. When her lease ended, moving in together was the logical next step. She contributed what she could, maybe $600 monthly for groceries and utilities, while I handled mortgage, property taxes, insurance, and most household expenses. Set up a joint checking account for shared costs, funded at $3,800 monthly. Clean system, zero drama about who paid what. I should have caught the subtle ownership creep in her language, though. Within 6 months, it was our house to friends, our car for errands, we're renovating the guest bath when I was doing 100% of the work and paying 100% of the bills. Couples talk like that, so I didn't sweat it. But there was something in her tone. She'd casually mentioned to friends how successful we were, how we were building this amazing life, how we had such solid financial planning. Never mind that the financial planning was my spreadsheets. and the success came from my 60-hour weeks. In her mind, my wins were already half hers, just by association. But I'm patient. I learned to observe patterns before making judgments. You collect evidence, analyze behavior, and let people show you who they really are. I had no idea that Valerie's college best friend was about to hand me all the evidence I'd ever need. His name was Miles, and he was about to teach me the most valuable lesson of my adult life. The difference between investing in someone and getting played. Miles freaking Davidson. Even typing his name makes my eye twitch, but I tried to be fair initially. Valerie's ride or die from UT undergrad, who'd supposedly held her together during some dramatic breakup with a musician ex during their senior year. According to her, Miles was the hero who rebuilt her confidence and convinced her she deserved better. The guy called himself a creative director and brand photographer. His portfolio website was all moody coffee shop photos and exactly 3 paying clients. He drove a 2007 BMW convertible that lived at the mechanic, rented a $1,400 a month studio in South Austin, and always seemed between major projects. The first red flag should have been his reaction when Valerie introduced us. Instead of normal pleasantries, Miles immediately sized me up like competition, asking pointed questions about my work, my income potential, and my long-term vision for the relationship. He positioned himself as Valerie's protective advisor, someone who'd guide her away from men who weren't worthy. What he lacked in success, he made up for in audacity. Specifically, his expert opinions on how Valerie was settling with me. It started subtle. I'd grab dinner. Miles would mention how her ex used to cook gourmet meals from scratch. I'd plan a San Antonio weekend. Miles would casually reference their spontaneous college road trip to Marfa. I'd buy her jewelry. Miles would joke about how corporate guys show love versus creative types. Every comment positioned me as the safe, boring provider, while establishing him as the keeper of Valerie's authentic self. He'd known her longer, understood her deeper, appreciated her real personality in ways that someone focused on practical stuff like financial stability never could. The worst part? Valerie ate it up completely. She'd gotten comfortable with the lifestyle I provided, but Miles kept whispering that comfort was costing her soul. He'd plant poison seeds. You seem different lately. Or, I miss the old Valerie. Are you sure this is what you want long-term? Her maid of honor, Tara, was the other parasite, apparently convinced her job was validating whatever Valerie felt. Valerie complained about my work schedule. Tara immediately agreed I was neglectful. Miles made snide comments about my corporate mindset. Tara nodded like he'd revealed profound wisdom, and so on. They turned standard couple stuff into symptoms of deep incompatibility that only they could diagnose. But what really started making me mad was Miles's relationship with my money. His BMW was constantly broken, and I mean constantly. Power steering, cooling system, transmission, electrical. Every 6 weeks, something else died on that German money pit. Every time, Miles would call Valerie, panicking about repair costs and how he might lose clients without transportation. Valerie would immediately transfer cash from our joint account, the account only I funded. $400 here, $600 there, just until he's back on his feet, she'd say. He'll pay us back when this big project comes through. The big project never came through, by the way. Miles never paid back anything, but the emergencies kept coming. His rent was apparently optional, at least 5 times in 10 months. Valerie covered his shortfall because he was between invoices or waiting for client payments. With my money. I was essentially bankrolling this parasite's lifestyle while he spent his days undermining my relationship. What made it worse was Miles's attitude during these loans. No gratitude, no acknowledgement that he was being bailed out by someone else's work. Just entitled expectation that Valerie would handle his problems, followed by continued criticism of my materialistic approach to life. Every time I brought up his behavior, the constant financial crisis, the disrespectful comments, his obvious resentment of our success, Valerie shut me down immediately. "He's family to me, Grant. He was there when X destroyed my confidence. That's not something you forget." That's just Miles being protective. He's struggling. Successful people lift others up. But I was noticing something else. Like my concerns were petty nonsense from someone who didn't understand loyalty the way she did. The conversation would end, nothing would change, and Miles would keep draining our account while poisoning Valerie's head about our relationship. Here's the thing. Miles was building a case against himself, transaction by transaction, comment by comment. He just didn't know he was about to face trial, and that trial was coming faster than either of us expected. The opportunity came after I closed the biggest case of my career. Hartwell Industries had been cooking their books for 3 years, hiding nearly $4 million in losses through accounting tricks that would make Enron proud. My analysis exposed the entire scheme and helped our client recover $2.8 million in settlement. 6 months of 18-hour days living on Red Bull and takeout, basically becoming a ghost while I built an unbreakable case. The breakthrough came when I discovered Hartwell's CFO had created phantom vendors to siphon cash while inflating revenue through false invoicing. Took me 4 months to trace every transaction, cross-reference banking records, and build a timeline that proves systematic fraud. Their legal team tried discrediting my work during depositions. But spreadsheets don't lie when you know how to read them. But we crushed them, and my success fee was substantial enough that I could finally enjoy the fruits of grinding like a maniac. So I decided to throw a celebration worthy of the milestone, not just dinner out, the kind of evening that marks real achievement. I wanted to share it with people who mattered. Billy, my best friend since college, who helped renovate the house. Liam and David from my firm, who covered my back during the case. Bella and Tom are couple friends who understood why I disappeared for half a year. "Invite whoever you want," I told Valerie. "This is as much about us as the case." Her eyes lit up when I mentioned the $2,500 budget. She immediately went full luxury mode, premium steaks from Salt and Thyme, professional flower arrangements, top-shelf beverages for the refreshment station. "Grant, this is our moment to really show people who we are," she said. And that phrase, "our moment," hit wrong. This was my professional win, but in her mind, it was already about her social status. The grocery list alone cost $800. She wanted specific wines to pair with each course, artisan bread from that expensive bakery downtown, imported cheese selection for appetizers. I watched her plan this celebration like a society hostess, not someone honoring their partner's career milestone. I went along with it anyway. Spent the week prepping. Billy helped set up sound and lighting. I planned a killer menu. Dry-aged ribeyes, farmer's market vegetables, homemade pasta starter, dessert spread that could feed an army. Every detail perfect. Fresh flowers throughout, good music, the kind of atmosphere that makes people want to stay and actually connect. The evening started exactly right. Great friends, incredible food, everyone relaxed and having genuine fun. For the first time in months, I was actually unwinding and enjoying what I'd earned. Liam was telling war stories about opposing counsel's faces when they saw our evidence. Bella was admiring house renovations she hadn't seen. It was the kind of night that reminds you why you grind so hard. Then, 40 minutes after everyone else arrived, Miles showed up. He didn't knock, just used Valerie's key like he owned the place. No apology for being late, no acknowledgement. This was my celebration. He surveyed everything with that calculating look of someone pricing out your success. Then headed straight for the refreshment station, where I'd opened premium beverages specifically for the occasion. "Nice setup, Grant," he said, pouring himself a generous portion of expensive drinks. "Really shows what you can accomplish when you prioritize the right things." The way he said right things, like earning money was morally questionable, made my jaw clench. But I kept my composure. Professional habit. Miles immediately started his usual performance about the difference between people who create value and people who extract it, positioning himself as the tortured artist surrounded by sellouts, the authentic creative in a room full of people who traded souls for paychecks. My friends were shooting him looks that could melt steel. But I stayed quiet and played gracious host, because here's what he didn't understand about me. He was about to give me everything I needed to end this permanently. As the evening progressed, Miles got louder and more obnoxious. He'd appointed himself the night's social commentator, holding court about everything from commodification of creativity to spiritual emptiness of pursuing financial success. Some people are driven by passion, he said, gesturing with my expensive beverages while staring directly at me. The need to create something meaningful. Others are more practical. He pronounced practical like a character flaw, like choosing financial stability over artistic struggle was evidence of moral bankruptcy. Billy was openly glaring. Liam had stopped pretending to listen. David looked like he was calculating how quickly he could remove Miles from the premises. But I stayed calm and let Miles keep digging. The best way to handle someone like this is giving them enough rope to hang themselves. Then Miles turned to Valerie with that fake, concerned expression that had become his signature move. I just want to make sure you're happy, Valerie. I mean, Grant's obviously a great provider. Theatrical pause, making sure everyone was listening. He's stable, reliable, and takes good care of you. Each word carefully chosen to damn with faint praise. This was about to get very interesting. Valerie's reaction. Instead of shutting him down or defending our relationship, she was nodding thoughtfully, like Miles was dropping profound wisdom about her life choices. She had this look I'd never seen before. Not embarrassed by his disrespect, but genuinely considering his words like they held merit. Bella was staring at Valerie with open disgust. Tom looked confused, like he couldn't believe what he was witnessing. My colleagues from the firm, guys who'd seen me demolish hostile witnesses and depositions, were watching with professional curiosity, recognizing the setup for something spectacular. Miles must have read her silence as encouragement because he decided to go for the throat. He looked me dead in the eye, smiled that smug little smile I'd grown to hate, and delivered what he thought was his knockout punch. But let's be honest, we both know she could do way better than you. Dead silence. The only sound was the HVAC humming in the background. My friends looked like they'd witnessed murder. Valerie stared at her plate, not angry at Miles for disrespecting her fiancé, but embarrassed he'd caused a scene. Worse, I caught the tiniest knot of agreement before she looked down. Tara was actually smiling like Miles had delivered profound truth that needed saying. That's when everything crystallized with clarity. This parasitic piece of work had just disrespected me in my own home, at my own celebration, while drinking my premium beverages and living off my financial support. And my fiancée, the woman I'd invested 3 years and over $150,000 in, wasn't embarrassed by what he'd said. She was embarrassed he'd said it out loud. Well, the friendly host mask came off. Time for the forensic accountant to present his case. I set down my utensils, folded my hands, and looked directly at Miles. When I spoke, my voice was quiet, controlled, completely professional. The tone I used when eviscerating hostile witnesses. That's a fascinating assessment, Miles. I'm very interested in your methodology. What exactly does doing better look like? Please be specific. He wasn't ready for this. He'd expected anger, emotional reaction, losing my temper. Instead, I was cross-examining him like the fraud he was. Well, someone more on her intellectual level, someone creative who actually understands her. I see, so the primary qualification is being creative, And I assume you see yourself fitting this description? Obviously. I understand Valerie better than anyone. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. Time for the evidence phase. Perfect. So, you're establishing yourself as the gold standard for what Valerie deserves. Excellent. Let's examine your qualifications using actual data instead of feelings. I felt the entire room's attention laser focus on me as I pulled up my account information. This was the moment I'd been unconsciously preparing for through months of watching this parasite drain my resources while undermining my relationship. Valerie's MBA tuition at UT, $52,000 per year for 2 years, paid directly to the bursar by me. That's $14,000 invested in her future career prospects. Her 2019 Honda Accord, $16,200 purchase price. Reliable transportation with warranty coverage, titled in my name, insurance through my policy at $180 monthly. His face was changing color, but I wasn't finished building my case. Monthly household expenses averaged $4,200 over the past 18 months. Mortgage, property taxes, utilities, groceries, maintenance, funded entirely by me. Joint account for discretionary spending, $3,800 monthly contribution, again, entirely from my income. I paused, letting the numbers sink in while switching apps. Liam was nodding appreciatively. He recognized surgical precision when he saw it. Now, as the self-appointed expert on what Valerie deserves, I'm curious about your investment portfolio. What have you contributed to her future lately, besides consistently talking down mine? That's not, he started, but I held up a hand. I'm not finished presenting evidence. Let's examine your financial relationship with my fiancée, shall we? I pulled out a small notebook. Yes, I'd been keeping records, and flipped to the relevant pages. Billy was grinning because he knew exactly what was coming. The forensic accountant was about to go full forensic. Your BMW repairs documented through Venmo and our joint account. March 15th, $420, power steering. April 3rd, $380, cooling system. May 22nd, $615, transmission service. July 8th, $290, electrical diagnostics. August 19th, $540, suspension work. That's $2,245 in car repairs over 8 months, all funded through accounts I maintain. One of my friends actually snorted before covering it with a cough. Miles looked like he'd been slapped, but I wasn't done yet. Then we have your rent emergencies. June shortfall, $400. August shortfall, $600. October shortfall, $450. November shortfall, $380. December shortfall, $525. Additional $2,355 in temporary loans that have never been repaid. I closed the notebook and stared directly at him. The room was so quiet you could hear Bella's glass touching the table. So let me make sure I understand your position, Miles. You believe a man who's invested over $150,000 in Valerie's education, career prospects, and quality of life is somehow inferior to a man who's extracted $4,600 from her accounts while contributing nothing tangible to her future success? Have I summarized your argument accurately? He looked like a witness who'd just been eviscerated on cross-examination, which is exactly what had happened. David was trying not to laugh. Tom was shaking his head. Even Tara looked uncomfortable for the first time all evening. But the real revelation came when I looked at Valerie, genuinely curious how she'd react to having the financial reality of our relationship laid out like that. Her face cycled through emotions. She shot up from her chair so violently it scraped against the hardwood I'd refinished with my own hands. Her whole body shaking with rage, not at Miles for disrespecting me in my own home, at me for defending myself with facts. "I cannot believe you just did that," Valerie hissed, voice low and venomous. "Are you serious? You completely humiliated him in front of everyone." I remained seated, calm. "No, Valerie, He humiliated himself. I simply presented documented evidence in response to his assessment of our relationship. "This isn't a courtroom, Grant," her voice rising, getting shrill. "This is supposed to be our home." The way she said "our home," like she had equal claim to something she'd never contributed a dollar toward, summed up everything wrong with our relationship dynamic. Our home that he just disrespected me in while drinking premium beverages I paid for and benefiting from financial support I provide. She wasn't hearing it. She was locked into defending Miles exactly as always. Except this time, the mask of polite disagreement was completely off. Miles is the only person who actually sees me for who I am. You just see me as some investment spreadsheet. You think throwing money at everything makes you a hero? The irony was completely lost on her, furious at me for throwing money at her success, while defending the guy who'd been literally taking that money for himself. My friends were watching this meltdown with fascination and horror. Bella looked disgusted. Billy was recording everything on his phone. Smart man. Liam was taking mental notes like he was witnessing evidence for a future case. That's enough. She was screaming now, completely unhinged. I'm tired of your rational discussions and logical analysis and way of handling everything. She turned to face the room, my friends, my celebration, my achievement, like addressing a jury that would surely side with her against my unreasonable behavior. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Everything has to be a transaction with you. Everything, analyzed and categorized and filed away like one of your cases. I could see my friends exchanging glances. They were witnessing something I'd never seen. The real Valerie who emerged when challenged about her choices and forced to confront reality. Miles was standing behind her like a wounded puppy, looking uncomfortable but not retreating. He'd lit this fire and was content to let her burn everything down, defending his position. You want everything documented and justified and proven. You can't just accept that some things are about feelings and loyalty. And what? Valerie taking money from my accounts to support someone who actively disrespects our relationship? That's when she pulled out the nuclear option. She straightened to full height, looked around, ensuring everyone was watching, and delivered her ultimatum with supreme confidence of someone who'd never faced real consequences. I'm done with this BS. Grant, you apologize to Miles right now for what you just did, or we are over. Finished. Done. Her voice got louder with each word, building to some dramatic crescendo that would force me to capitulate. She actually smiled, delivering that final threat. Convinced she just played her winning hand. The room held its breath. In that moment of absolute silence, I experienced the most clarifying moment of my adult life. She was standing there, at my celebration, in my house, demanding I apologize to the man who just insulted me while living off my financial support. But more than that, she was so convinced of her own importance, so certain of her leverage, that she believed she could deliver an ultimatum and watch me fold like a weak hand. She thought I needed her more than she needed me. Well, she's dead wrong. The love I'd felt for her didn't just die in that moment. It was executed publicly, in front of witnesses, replaced by something much colder and far more dangerous. Complete clarity about who she really was and what our relationship had actually been. I looked at her with the detachment I reserved for hostile witnesses and smiled. Not angry, not hurt, just amused by someone who'd fundamentally miscalculated their position. Then over it is, sweetheart. I stood up calmly, picked up my drink, and walked into the kitchen, leaving her standing in the silent dining room next to the man she'd chosen to defend. Behind me, I heard her gasp. Sharp, shocked intake, like she'd been physically struck. For the first time in our entire relationship, someone hadn't done exactly what Valerie wanted. Sounds of shuffling chairs and uncomfortable murmurs followed me into the kitchen. But I didn't look back. I was already mentally organizing the next phase. Because when someone shows you who they really are and forces you to choose between self-respect and compliance, There's only one rational choice. She left with Miles that night. In her mind, she'd thrown down the ultimate challenge and was waiting for me to come crawling back with apologies and promises to never question her judgment again. She had no idea what was coming. For 3 weeks, I went full ghost mode. No calls, no texts, no responses to voicemails that started confident and demanding, but grew increasingly panicked as days passed. But I wasn't sulking or wallowing. I was working with the precision that made me lethal at my job. The first weekend, I packed every single thing Valerie owned. Not angrily, not vindictively, just efficiently, like closing a case file. Clothes, books, toiletries, pictures, decorative items, kitchen gadgets. Everything went into clearly labeled boxes, stacked neatly in the spare room, and photographed for documentation. Billy came over Saturday to help change locks and reset security codes. $340 in 2 hours. Best money I'd ever spent. While the locksmith worked, I began making calls that would fundamentally alter Valerie's trajectory. Call number 1, UT's bursar office. Explained that due to personal circumstances, I'd no longer be making tuition payments for Valerie, effective immediately. Her spring semester payment, $26,000, was due in 18 days. They noted the change and mentioned failure to pay would result in automatic withdrawal and academic hold. Call number 2, my firm's managing partner. Explained conflict of interest and requested Valerie's removal from our summer internship program. The $28 per hour position with potential full-time offer was reassigned within 48 hours. Call number 3, insurance company. Removed Valerie from my auto policy immediately. Wouldn't affect her driving the Honda yet, but would complicate her life when she tried getting coverage. The final call, credit card company. Removed Valerie as authorized user, requested physical cards deactivated. I also contacted my attorney to draft formal documentation terminating our cohabitation agreement and establishing clear ownership of all jointly held assets. Every transaction, every payment, every investment needed an official record for potential legal challenges. Then I composed one text, engagement ring return requested within 10 calendar days. Followed with formal letter via certified mail, because documentation matters when dismantling someone's lifestyle. Finally, I reclaimed my Honda Accord. Title in my name, payments from my account. Valerie no longer insured. Found it at Miles's complex and had it towed to my driveway. Perfectly legal, completely justified. But Valerie wasn't going quietly. The voicemail started day 2. And I saved every single one for potential evidence. Day 2. Grant, this is ridiculous. You're acting like a child. Call me back so we can handle this like adults. Day 4. You can't just steal my car. That's my car. I have places to be. Call me immediately. Day 7. Grant, the bursar's office called. There has to be some mistake. They're saying my tuition payment was canceled. Call me right now. Day 10. This is insane. You're destroying my life over nothing. Nothing. Call me or I'm coming over. Day 12. Please, Grant, I know you're hurt, but we can work this out. I know you love me. Don't throw away 3 years over one stupid fight. Day 16. I'm coming to get my things. You can't keep them hostage. The progression from entitled demands to desperate bargaining was textbook. I'd seen it before when cornering financial fraudsters. First denial, then anger, then panic. As reality set in, every dollar I'd spent on Valerie was predicated on our partnership and shared future. She'd taken a sledgehammer to that partnership, so financial support stopped. Simple cause and effect. But she had lived her entire adult life in a world where consequences were things that happened to other people. She was about to learn this was no longer the case. Exactly 3 weeks after the dinner party, my security system alerted someone at the front door. I pulled up the camera feed, and there she was. Valerie, looking haggard and panicked as her key refused to work in the new lock. She rang the bell. I took my time answering because I wanted her to experience the full weight of what over actually meant. I opened the door but kept the security chain engaged. She looked terrible. Righteous anger replaced by desperation and several nights of poor sleep. But underneath the panic, I could still see that familiar entitlement burning in her eyes. Grant, we need to talk. Nope, we really don't. You made your choice 3 weeks ago. You demanded I apologize to your friend or end our engagement. I chose to end it. Conversation's over. You can't throw away 3 years over one fight. It wasn't a fight. You gave me an ultimatum. I accepted your terms. That's what over means. I could see panic setting in as she realized I wasn't bluffing or playing games for her attention. This was real and permanent. But what about school, the internship, everything we planned? What about it? Your spring tuition was due 3 days ago. I assume you and Miles figured out alternative funding since he's so much better for you? Color drained from her face completely. You didn't pay it. Why would I? You ended our engagement. My investment in your future ended with it. Grant, you can't do this to me. I'm not doing anything to you. I'm simply no longer doing things for you. There's a difference. You made a choice. Choices have consequences. You're about to learn what those look like. I started closing the door, but she stuck her foot in the gap. What about my stuff? Boxed and ready for pickup. Coordinate with Billy to collect it. His number hasn't changed. Don't contact me directly again. That's when she completely lost what remained of her composure. She started screaming, not crying, but screaming with pure rage. This is insane. You're destroying my life because your ego got bruised. I opened the door wider and looked at her calmly. She was spiraling, and I wanted to see exactly how far down she'd go. You think you can cut me off like I'm nothing? Like 3 years means nothing? I deserve better than this. You're absolutely right, I said quietly. You do deserve this. That's when she went nuclear, screaming obscenities loud enough for the entire neighborhood to hear. She tried pushing past me into the house, stumbling when I stepped back. This is my house too. I live here. You can't lock me out. You lived here. Past tense. You never owned anything here, never paid for anything here, and forfeited your right to be here when you chose Miles over me. She completely broke down, not with sadness, but with entitled rage of someone who'd never been denied anything. I'll sue you. I'll get a lawyer. I'll take everything. I actually laughed, which pushed her over the edge completely. With what money? Sue me for what? Ending financial support after you ended our engagement? Good luck finding a lawyer who will take that case. She made one final attempt to force entry before giving up and storming off to her Uber. But she wasn't done. Over the next 6 weeks, she tried everything. Sent mutual friends to reason with me about destroying an innocent woman's future. Had Tara call crying about how I was being cruel and vindictive. Even had Miles call. Miles to tell me I was unreasonable and Valerie made a mistake but didn't deserve this. She showed up at my office twice, both times resulting in security escorts and incident reports. Tried following me in the parking garage until I called police. Sucks to suck, but each escalation made things worse for her. The restraining order was granted easily after I presented comprehensive documentation of her harassment pattern. But the real destruction was just beginning, and it was all her own doing. Valerie had to withdraw from UT 4 months before graduating with her MBA. Turns out Miles's head shop business couldn't generate $26,000 overnight. Shocking. Student loan debt remained. $73,000 accumulated over 2 years, plus interest. Now she had no degree, no career prospects requiring an MBA, and a 3-year gap in professional work history. The internship I'd arranged, typically leading to $95,000 full-time offers, went to another candidate who's now making bank and building a solid career foundation. Valerie was not. She had to move in with Miles because she couldn't afford anything alone. But getting everything you think you want sometimes comes with unexpected costs. Miles had spent years painting himself as the romantic, creative alternative to boring, practical me. Now he was stuck with a bitter, angry woman who blamed him daily for destroying her future, while expecting him to provide the financial stability he'd spent years criticizing. But I wasn't finished with Miles yet. When you're a forensic accountant who's watched someone drain your accounts for over a year, you notice patterns. Let's say our hero had very interesting patterns that got my attention. All those emergency repairs and rent payments. Miles always insisted on cash, said he didn't trust banks, and preferred keeping things simple. What he actually preferred was keeping transactions off official records. So I did what I do professionally, followed the money trail. Miles had been running his photography business completely under the table for years. No business license, no tax reporting, no legitimate structure. Just cash payments that never appeared on tax returns. Over 4 years, that represented substantial unreported income. I documented everything meticulously. Every cash transaction I could verify, every business expense claimed while having no legal entity, every rental payment suggesting higher income than reported. Then compiled a comprehensive report for the IRS and Texas Comptroller. Oops. I also discovered his lease specified single occupancy only. No overnight guests for more than 14 consecutive days. Having Valerie move in permanently violated his lease agreement and could result in immediate eviction. The beauty of targeting someone like Miles is his entire lifestyle was built on cutting corners and avoiding legitimate responsibility. When actual consequences caught up, everything collapsed. The IRS audit hit Miles first. Turns out, when you've been dodging taxes while living beyond reported means, the government takes that personally. Miles suddenly faced back taxes, penalties, and interest totaling over $31,000, more than his legitimate annual income. His landlord initiated eviction proceedings for lease violation. He tried lying his way out, but I'd provided photographic evidence of Valerie's permanent residence. Several photography clients received letters from the state investigating unlicensed business operations. Word spread quickly that hiring Miles might bring legal complications. Within 10 weeks, the guy lost his apartment, most of his client base, and faced crushing tax debt with no way to pay. Supporting an angry student who constantly reminded him he destroyed her future suddenly seemed less appealing. He abandoned Valerie 2 weeks before eviction, just disappeared while she was at her new retail job, leaving household debt and a note about needing space to figure things out. The engagement ring was never voluntarily returned. I filed in small claims court, got judgment, and had her wages garnished until the $4,800 ring was repaid with interest. Took 11 months, but I recovered every penny. 4 months after garnishment satisfaction, a lawyer contacted me about Valerie's lawsuit for financial abuse and emotional distress. The attorney dropped her case after reviewing my documentation and the recording of her breakdown at my door. Turns out, voluntary financial support during relationships doesn't create legal obligation, and you can't claim distress from someone enforcing consequences you demanded. Now, last I heard through mutual friends, Valerie works retail management and lives with roommates near the interstate. She still tells anyone who will listen that I'm a controlling monster who manipulated finances to trap her, and Miles was a coward who abandoned her when she needed him most. Too bad. Miles moved back with his parents in Houston and works at a corporate portrait studio for $18 an hour. Word is he's learned to file taxes properly, avoid giving relationship advice, and think carefully before targeting someone who investigates financial fraud professionally. My friends still reference that dinner party. They call it the night Grant went forensic. Billy had it printed on a shirt. I didn't do this for revenge, though. I admit the results were satisfying. I did it for self-respect and basic accountability. That's what over actually means.